What if everything you thought you knew about living a long life was wrong? For decades, we've been told that modern medicine is the ultimate key to longevity. Pills, treatments, hospitals, they're supposed to save us. But here's the shocking truth. The places with the highest number of people living past 100 aren't relying on endless medications or advanced technology. Instead, they've uncovered hidden secrets in their everyday lifestyle that science is only beginning to catch up with. Imagine this. In Japan, people live longer not because of hospitals, but because of simple habits like eating until they're just 80% full, drinking green tea, and enjoying fermented foods. In Hong Kong, people love long despite eating more red meat than anywhere else in the world, a fact that flips conventional wisdom upside down. Welcome to the Nutrition Institute, where we break down the real secrets behind health and longevity. Stay with me, because what you'll discover in this video will challenge what you believe about aging, disease, and the true meaning of living a healthy 100 years. If you want more eye-opening insights like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Your future self will thank you. When most people hear the word longevity, they immediately picture doctors, hospitals, and high-tech medicine keeping people alive. I used to think the same way, but the more I explored this topic, the more I realized how wrong that assumption really is. Yes, modern medicine can save lives, and yes, it has given us incredible tools against disease. But when it comes to living not just longer, but better, the truth is far more surprising and far more practical. Let me start with something that completely shifted my perspective. For centuries, the average lifespan was shockingly short. Thousands of years ago, half of all people didn't even make it to 30. Even by the mid-1800s, half of everyone born died before reaching 35. On the surface, it looks like science and medicine single-handedly rescued humanity. But here's the twist. The biggest jump in life expectancy didn't come from miracle drugs, vaccines, or surgeries. It came from something as simple as plumbing. Yes, plumbing. When cities started cleaning up sewage and improving sanitation, child mortality plummeted. Diseases like cholera, typhoid, and dysentery, which once wiped out half of all children before age 15, were suddenly under control. That one change caused life expectancy to skyrocket long before antibiotics or vaccines were widely available. Now, don't get me wrong, medicine still plays a role. Antibiotics and modern treatments absolutely extend life. But here's the question that matters. Are we really talking about living longer or just managing disease for longer? There's a big difference. Managing disease often means taking pills every day, relying on machines, and living with side effects. It keeps you alive, but not necessarily healthy. Creating health, on the other hand, means building a body that functions optimally, one that adapts to stress, sleeps deeply, maintains muscle, resists illness, and stays sharp with age. Personally, I know which version of longevity I want. I don't want to reach 100 years old in a nursing home, confused and frail. I want to get there with strength, clarity, and independence. That's why I found the examples of Japan and Hong Kong so fascinating. Japan has the highest number of centenarians in the world, over 95,000 people who've lived past 100. And they're not just alive. Many of them are active, vibrant, and socially engaged. What's their secret? It's not a magic pill. It's a collection of cultural habits. Starting with education, in Japan, nutrition isn't left to chance. By law, schools are required to teach kids about food, not through vague guidelines, but with actual dietitians. And unlike in America, where the junk food industry often influences nutrition education, Japanese children learn early about real, whole foods. Imagine how different your health would be if you had been raised with that kind of foundation. I know for me, I grew up on junk food, and it took years to undo those habits. But education is only part of it. The Japanese diet itself is unique. They eat rice that's less refined and free of harsh chemicals like glyphosate. They eat fish and meat without guilt, and they consume soy in its fermented form miso, natto, soy sauce, which is completely different from the processed soy protein isolates that fill American grocery shelves. Fermented soy provides vitamin K2, which strengthens bones and keeps calcium from clogging arteries. Seaweed, another staple, is loaded with iodine and trace minerals. In fact, the average Japanese person consumes 9 times more iodine than the average American, helping regulate hormones and protect against excess estrogen. Then there's the fascinating balance of salt and potassium. Japanese people consume more salt than Americans, but they also consume far more potassium, especially from vegetables and seaweed. This balance supports the sodium-potassium pump in every cell, which acts like a tiny battery for energy production. It's a perfect example of how context matters. Too much salt without potassium can raise blood pressure, but salt combined with enough potassium actually fuels the body. And let's not forget their daily routines. The average Japanese person walks over 6,000 steps per day, 2,000 more than the average American. Walking may seem ordinary, but it compounds over decades, strengthening the heart, lungs, and metabolism. They also practice hara hachibu, the habit of eating until you're about 80% full. This simple practice prevents overeating, reduces stress on the body's energy systems, and preserves mitochondrial health, the tiny power plants inside our cells that determine how efficiently we age. Now, here's the real curveball. Hong Kong. This city has an even higher life expectancy than Japan. Yet the people there eat more meat than anyone else on the planet. On average, each person consumes over 300 pounds of meat per year, mostly pork and beef, the exact foods we're constantly told to avoid. And yet, their longevity doesn't seem to suffer. Why? Because longevity isn't about one food group or one nutrient. It's about the bigger picture. In Hong Kong, people walk a lot, smoke less, and balance their meat, heavy diet with seafood and vegetables. To me, these examples prove something powerful. Longevity doesn't come from following rigid dietary dogma. It comes from building a lifestyle that works with your body instead of against it. Sometimes that means going against the mainstream narrative. For years, we've been told to fear red meat, salt, and fat. But in reality, the context matters far more than the headlines. Meat can be harmful in a processed, sedentary, stressed out lifestyle. But in a culture where people move more, sleep better, and eat whole foods, it can actually support health. This realization forces me to rethink my own approach. I used to focus on avoiding specific bad foods, obsessing over rules, and relying on supplements when I felt off. Now, I'm learning to think bigger. Am I giving my body the tools it needs to function optimally? Am I eating in a way that supports my microbiome, my mitochondria, and my sleep? Am I moving enough? Not just through exercise, but in the thousands of small steps that make up daily life. Longevity isn't about perfection. It's about stacking small advantages day after day, year after year. It's about making sure you don't just add years to your life, but life to your years. And that's the real takeaway from part 1 of this journey. The secrets of living to 100 aren't locked in a pharmacy or hidden inside a high-tech lab. They're in the food we eat, the way we move, the quality of our sleep, and the strength of our connections. They're simple, accessible, and surprisingly human. When I think about longevity, the first question that comes to mind is this: do we want to simply manage disease, or do we want to create health? Those two paths may sound similar, but In reality, they lead to very different futures. Managing disease means depending on pills, treatments, and constant monitoring. It means putting a patch over symptoms without truly addressing the root cause. Yes, this model can extend life, but often at the expense of side effects, dependency, and a lower quality of living. Creating health, on the other hand, is about building a strong, resilient body that adapts and heals itself. Personally, I don't just want to make it to 100 years old. I want to enjoy those years, free from unnecessary suffering. So, what does it take to create health? The answer lies in small, powerful principles that shape the way we live every single day. Let's break them down. Insulin resistance, the silent enemy. One of the most overlooked threats to long life is insulin resistance. You've probably heard of diabetes, obesity, or fatty liver disease, but the common root behind them is often insulin resistance, the body's inability to properly respond to insulin. The scary part is that it can build silently for years. Blood sugar tests may look normal, but behind the scenes, insulin levels are sky high, pushing sugar into cells until the system starts to fail. Doctors rarely test fasting insulin, yet it's one of the best indicators of true metabolic health. Keeping fasting insulin low, ideally under 7 or even under 5, is a cornerstone of longevity. How? By cutting back on hidden sugars and refined starches, white bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, waffles, pancakes. These foods flood the body with glucose, pushing insulin higher and higher. If we want to age well, controlling insulin resistance is non-negotiable. Autophagy and fasting, the body's self-cleaning switch. One of the most fascinating processes in the human body is autophagy, a built-in cleaning system where damaged cells and proteins are broken down and recycled. Think of it as a natural detox, but far more effective than any juice cleanse. The problem is, autophagy doesn't switch on if you're constantly eating. It activates during fasting. This is why intermittent fasting and occasional prolonged fasting are such powerful tools for longevity. Going without food for 16, 24, or even 48 hours gives your body time to repair itself on a cellular level. It's uncomfortable at first, but the long-term benefits are undeniable. Reduced inflammation, cleaner mitochondria, and a body that functions like a well-oiled machine. Personally, once I experienced the clarity and energy that comes from fasting, I stopped viewing hunger as the enemy and started seeing it as a healing state. VO2 max and fitness reserve. If there's one test that can predict how long you'll live, it's VO2 max, the measure of how well your body uses oxygen during exercise. It's like a snapshot of your fitness reserve, the extra fuel tank that keeps you resilient against stress, illness, and aging. The higher your VO2 max, the better your chances of living not just longer, but with more vitality. Building VO2 max isn't complicated. It comes from regular aerobic activity, brisk walking, running, cycling, swimming. High intensity intervals help too. What struck me most is that this isn't about vanity or six-pack abs, it's about survival. A strong VO2 max lowers inflammation, improves sleep, balances hormones, and provides a buffer against life's inevitable challenges. Mitochondria, power plants of longevity. Deep inside every cell are mitochondria, tiny power plants that produce energy. When they're healthy, you feel strong, focused, and alive. When they're weak, fatigue, disease, and aging accelerate. Supporting mitochondria requires two things: quality fuel and essential nutrients. That means cutting out seed oils like soy, corn, and canola, which damage mitochondria, and instead focusing on nutrient-dense foods, animal protein for amino acids, B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, copper, manganese, iodine, and coenzyme Q10. Every chemical reaction in the mitochondria depends on these nutrients. Without them, the engine stalls. With them, the body hums. Hormesis, stress that heals. Here's a paradox. A little stress can make you stronger. This concept, called hormesis, is one of nature's secrets to resilience. Exercise is a perfect example. It stresses muscles, but the recovery makes them stronger. The same is true for heat and cold exposure. Sitting in a sauna or taking a cold shower challenges the body, forcing it to adapt by activating survival genes and strengthening systems. Even sunlight, which we often avoid, is a mild stressor that stimulates vitamin D production and supports the immune system. The lesson is clear. Avoiding all stress doesn't make us healthier. The right kinds of stress, applied in small doses, make us tougher, more adaptable, and ultimately more capable of living longer. The microbiome, our hidden ally, inside our gut lives a vast community of microbes that play an enormous role in health and longevity. They help digest food, regulate the immune system, produce vitamins, and even influence mood. The Japanese, for example, have gut microbes adapted to digest seaweed, giving them unique health benefits. But here's the catch. Our microbiome depends on what we feed it. Fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, kefir, and miso introduce diverse, beneficial microbes. Vegetables grown in real soil carry natural probiotics, while hydroponic vegetables do not. A diverse diet equals a diverse microbiome, and a diverse microbiome equals stronger immunity and resilience. Sleep, the overlooked pillar. Of all the factors influencing longevity, sleep may be the most underestimated. Poor sleep wrecks hormones, raises inflammation, weakens the immune system, and accelerates aging. Deep sleep, on the other hand, is when the brain detoxifies, memories consolidate, and the body repairs. Improving sleep often requires simple adjustments, lowering room temperature to 62 to 68 degrees, using magnesium glycinate before bed, avoiding late caffeine, and resetting the circadian rhythm with morning sunlight. I used to see sleep as optional, something to cut for productivity. Now I see it as the ultimate performance enhancer and one of the most powerful anti-aging tools we have: social connection and emotional resilience. Finally, let's talk about something no supplement can replace: connection. Loneliness is devastating to health. Studies show that losing a loved one dramatically increases the risk of heart attack, especially in the first weeks. On the flip side, strong social bonds buffer stress, improve mood, and extend life. Longevity isn't just physical, it's emotional. Having people to laugh with, share with, and rely on makes the difference between merely existing and truly living. If you want to live to 100, don't just eat better, build relationships. In the end, the lesson is simple, but profound. Longevity isn't about escaping death through medicine. It's about living in a way that maximizes quality, resilience, and joy. It's about aligning with how the body was designed to thrive through movement, fasting, nourishment, rest, and connection. For me, that means shifting my mindset. Instead of asking, how can I avoid disease? I now ask, how can I create health? Because that's where true longevity begins. Whenever we talk about living to 100, people often focus on the number itself, the age, the milestone, the sheer rarity of hitting triple digits. But here's the truth I've come to realize. Longevity is not a destination. It's not about hitting a magic number. It's about the quality of those years and the daily choices that get us there. The future of longevity isn't locked away in a lab or reserved for billionaires experimenting with cutting-edge technology. It's here now, shaped by everyday habits that either build resilience or slowly erode it. And when I look at the big picture, it becomes clear living to 100 in good health is not about luck, it's about strategy. The two roads of longevity, I keep coming back to the same dividing line. Will we manage disease, or will we create health? The disease management path often leads to dependency on medications, endless doctor visits, and a gradual decline in independence. The other path, creating health, leads to vitality, autonomy, and the possibility of not just living longer, but living better. This is where the practical secrets of longevity come alive. They aren't abstract ideas. They're habits and principles you can put into practice today. And the impact they make is cumulative small actions stacked consistently over years compound into remarkable results. The Japanese lesson, balance and restraint. Japan taught me one of the simplest but most powerful longevity habits, hara hachi bu, or eating until you're 80% full. At first, it sounded trivial. How much difference could a little restraint make? But when you understand the science, it's profound. Overeating overloads the mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside cells. With too much fuel, this creates damage, oxidative stress, and eventually chronic disease. By stopping at 80%, the Japanese protect their mitochondria, reduce inflammation, and keep their metabolism flexible. It's not about dieting, it's about respecting the body's limits. Add to that their high intake of fermented foods, seaweed, fish, and vegetables, and you get a lifestyle that supports gut health, hormone balance, and cardiovascular strength. Combined with daily movement, those extra 2,000 steps per day, compared to Americans, the result is a population that doesn't just live long, but thrives well into old age. The Hong Kong surprise, challenging dogma. Then there's Hong Kong, which flips conventional wisdom on its head. With the highest life expectancy in the world, you'd expect their diet to be plant, heavy, low in meat, and aligned with the typical healthy eating narrative. Instead, the average person in Hong Kong eats over 300 pounds of meat every year, mostly pork and beef. Conventional advice warns against red meat, linking it to heart disease and cancer. But the Hong Kong example shows us something important. Health isn't defined by one food group. It's about the entire context of lifestyle. Hong Kong residents walk a lot, eat plenty of seafood, and have lower smoking rates. Their high meat consumption doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a broader lifestyle that still supports longevity. To me, this is liberating. It shows that there isn't a single rigid formula for living long. What matters is not following diet dogma, but building a lifestyle that keeps your body functioning at its best. The 18 principles in action. When I think about the practical steps anyone can take, the list of 18 longevity habits feels like a roadmap. Each one is simple on its own, but together they create a powerful synergy. Manage insulin resistance by cutting hidden sugars and refined starches. Embrace fasting and autophagy to give your body time to repair. Improve VO2 max through consistent aerobic and interval training. Support mitochondria with real food, animal protein, vitamins, and minerals. Practice hormesis with small doses of stress, exercise, heat, cold, sunlight. Nourish the microbiome with fermented foods and soil, grown vegetables. Prioritize deep sleep by managing light, temperature, and routine. Strengthen social connections to guard against loneliness. Maintain muscle and hormones through resistance training and adequate protein. What strikes me most is that these aren't expensive, exclusive strategies. They're available to nearly everyone. You don't need a medical degree or a millionaire's budget to walk more, sleep better, eat real food, and fast occasionally. These habits are democratic in the best sense. They give anyone willing to commit the chance to thrive. Looking forward, a new vision of aging. The future of longevity isn't about reaching 120 years in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines. It's about redefining aging itself. Instead of expecting decline, frailty, and dependence, We can envision aging as a stage of strength, wisdom, and contribution. This shift requires a new mindset. Instead of fearing age, we can embrace it as an opportunity to live more fully, provided we take care of the foundations now. Every walk, every good night's sleep, every balanced meal is an investment not just for tomorrow, but for decades ahead. What excites me is that these principles scale. Imagine if schools, like in Japan, taught real nutrition from an early age. Imagine if communities encouraged daily movement, if workplaces valued rest as much as productivity, if food culture emphasized quality over convenience. The impact would ripple across generations. The choice is yours. Ultimately, longevity isn't something that happens to us. It's something we shape. And it comes down to a choice. Do you want to live to 100 managed by pills and machines? Or do you want to live to 100 with energy, clarity, and independence? For me, the answer is obvious. I don't want to just count the years. I want the years to count. I want to be strong enough to climb stairs, sharp enough to hold conversations, and healthy enough to keep doing the things I love well into my later years. And the good news is, it's not out of reach. It doesn't require perfection, just consistent commitment to the habits that create health. Step by step, meal by meal, night by night, you can build a life that adds not only years, but joy, freedom, and vitality. So, as we move into the final part of this journey, I'll leave you with a question. When you imagine yourself at 100, what kind of life do you want to be living? Because the choices you make today are writing that future right now. When I step back and look at everything we've explored, one truth becomes undeniable. Longevity is not an accident. It's the result of choices, small, deliberate choices that compound into a life of vitality. For too long, many of us have believed that aging means inevitable decline. We expect to grow weaker, sicker, and more dependent as the years pass. But what Japan, Hong Kong, and science itself reveal is that aging can look completely different. It can be strong, vibrant, and filled with purpose. The key is to focus less on managing disease and more on creating health. Medicine can keep you alive, but it can't give you quality of life. That comes from the foundations: movement, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and connection. The 18 principles we discussed aren't just strategies for living longer. They're a framework for living better. Here's the lesson I take personally. Health is not built in crisis. It's built in the quiet, ordinary moments. The walk you take after dinner, the decision to stop eating before you're stuffed, the habit of going to bed on time, the choice to share a meal with friends instead of eating alone. These choices don't seem dramatic in the moment, but they shape the decades ahead. I'll be honest, there was a time when I didn't care about these things. I ate poorly, slept less, and assumed I could fix problems later with a pill. But the more I've learned, the more I realize how costly that mindset can be. You can't buy back vitality once it's gone. Prevention is not just cheaper than treatment, it's richer, fuller, and far more rewarding. So here's how I plan to apply this. I'm committed to eating with more mindfulness, walking every day, protecting my sleep, and practicing fasting. But beyond that, I'm committed to connection. Because at the end of the day, health isn't just about the body, it's also about the heart. Now, I want to turn this question to you. If you could adopt just one of these longevity principles starting today, which one would it be? Would you try fasting, focus on sleep, build muscle, or maybe spend more time with friends? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective, and it might inspire someone else too. And if you found value in this journey, don't forget to subscribe to the Nutrition Institute. Your support gives us the motivation to keep creating more content that can transform your health and your future. Remember, longevity isn't just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years